Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to share with you the new Colourpop I Think I Love You palette. This is a gorgeous fall neutral palette that they just released. It's a really great value. So I'm going to be sharing swatches and also my eyeshadow look. So if you guys are interested in this palette, then just keep on watching. Alright, so the Colourpop I Think I Love You palette is a $16 eyeshadow palette. It has 12 shades in here. It has 4 matte shades and 8 metallic shades. So it is a lot of really shimmery shadows, and you don't have that many transition shades, which might be a turnoff for some people because you are a little bit limited. You get a light shade to like set your eyes, a black, and then just 2 matte brown shadows for transition shades. The rest are all shimmers, but they're so pretty. And I've talked about Colourpop shadows before. I've reviewed the Yes Please palette and their individual shadows. I just love the formula. I love Colourpop shadows. Are really great for the price. This is $16 for 12 shadows, so this is a really awesome value. And for comparison, this is a full-size eyeshadow from Colourpop. This is 0.035 ounces, and each of these are 0.03, so these are just slightly smaller compared to this. You guys can see like they're not that much off, so you do get a really good value, and each of these are $5. So it is a really amazing value, and you get a lot of shadows. So I believe all the Colourpop eyeshadow palettes are the same size. So it's the same size as the Yes Please palette. You guys can probably tell just by looking at them. I definitely prefer the packaging of this compared to this. This has more of like a matte finish, kind of like NARS packaging. It's not as like intense or sticky, but it is more matte, and it's cardboard, so it doesn't have any sheen to it, and it gets really messy. So I hate how it's like so messy with this palette compared to this one that is more satin, and any eyeshadow that gets on it is just gonna rub off, and it's not gonna like look all stained and gross compared to this one. So you guys can see they are very different palettes, at least to me. This one is so much more warm and red tone. This one does have a little bit more mattes in it compared to this one. And then here you get a lot more neutral shades, a lot more just neutral, more cool tone shades as well compared to this. This is all warm and very a lot more bold compared to this palette. This one can be a lot more wearable, very natural compared to this palette. But I feel like the I Think I Love You palette is going to be a lot more wearable and natural. A lot of people are going to be interested in this palette. I feel like this is very specific for very warm tone palette lovers, and it's also a bit more bold. So it's not just like warm browns. You get some yellows, some more bolder shades in this one. So this is definitely way more neutral. So I'm gonna go ahead and swatch all the shades in the palette, and just so you guys know, all the shade names are in the back and they're backwards when you read them. So I'm just gonna read them from the Colourpop site, and that way I can also tell you how the colors are described. And this one is Bitter Better. This is a metallic soft gold, and this is the shade that has the most fallout. You guys can probably tell. It's a bit more grainy. It's not as smooth, but when it goes on the eye, it does apply, and you can get like that intense pigmentation. You can see when I swatch it, but there's gonna be more fallout with this shade out of all of the shades in the palette. Next, Bel Air is a metallic cool taupe color. So this is more of a cool tone transition shade, and I really wish there was a warm transition shade in here too, but that is like a very neutral staple transition shade. Next is shade Fancy Face. Is all over my lid today. This is a metallic red, bright red copper shade. It's so pretty, it's so satin and goes on so smooth. And then next to that is Girls Bite. This is on my lower lash line. This is a metallic golden bronze shade. These are just so gorgeous. Like, they're so pigmented. And then next we have Howdy. This is a metallic red bronze. This is really satin too. This is also on my lower lash line. So the red in that shade is pretty subtle. It's on my lower lash line today, and it just shows up more coppery. And then the next shade is called Rowdy. This is a matte warm ivory. It had a little bit of a glitter overlay on top, but it's definitely matte. This is just what I use for my brow bone and to set my eyes. So it's just like an ivory eggshell color. Next we have My Treat. This is a metallic champagne ivory. So it's like an icy rose color. So you guys can see these are all so consistent. So like all the metallics, all the shimmer shades, just and all the matte shades are really consistent. There's no like uneven pigmentation in these. And then we have Level Up. This is a metallic bright penny copper. This is a gorgeous like reddish tone or orangey, like pumpkin-y tone. This is kind of like in my inner corner today. It's a really gorgeous color. Next is the shade Screw It. This is a metallic soft rose gold. This is the color I've been wearing the most. It's the most like, to me, it's the most ideal lid color because it's not super glittery or metallic. It's gonna look pretty neutral on the lid. You guys can see how it's more satin compared to some of the metallic shades. Then we have just a matte black color. This is called Let's Do It Matte True Black. So it's super pigmented. I have not tried out this shade yet. It's been a while since I've had black on my eyes, and there's a little bit of fallout with that shade, but it's not like crumbling down. It's not super intense. Next we have the shade Rule Breaker. This is a metallic bright yellow gold. It has a little bit of a greenish hint to it, which is not my favorite kind of gold. I feel like if you have more of like a neutral or cool tone skin tone, like with like pink undertones, that's gonna show up really pretty. Actually, I'll do an eye look with this shade too, especially for like an inner corner. And then lastly, we have My Type. This is a matte deep saddle brown. It's a little bit more of a warm brown, but it's not like too red or anything. I have this in my crease today as well. So that is the last transition shade in this palette. So those are all the shades. I love them all. There's not like any weird shade in here that doesn't make sense in the palette. Maybe out of all of them, this shade Rule Breaker, which is more of that yellowy gold, but when you see it with all the other shades, it does make sense. So the formula is really consistent for all of them. They're all really, really pigmented. They're all really satin. The fallout is not like super extreme. So I definitely love all the shades of this palette. They all perform really, really nicely. They go on really nicely. They last all day. They don't end up patchy or anything. I've been wearing this. I've probably done like 4 eye looks with this palette so far. So those are all the shades. You guys can see they swatch true to pan. That's what I like to say. Like if they look like on my arm, how they look in the pan, or they look on your eyes like they do in the pan, and you're not getting like really gorgeous metallic shades and then it ends up being like basically like the most subtle nothingness on my arm. So you guys can see they're really consistent, really beautiful shadows. So those are all the swatches of all the shadows. I'm gonna move into the tutorial so you guys can see how I did this eye look using like half of this palette. All right, so I'm just gonna start off with this shade Rowdy, which is just a matte ivory color to set my eyes, or just to even out the coloring of my eyes. It has like a slight sheen to it, or a slight like little bit of glitter flecks to it, but it looks matte on the eyes and applies really smooth and pigmented. And then there are 2 transition shades in this palette. I'm going to use both of them. I'm going to start off with Bel Air with my Sigma E40, and this is more of a neutral brown. It's actually a little bit cool and taupey. I do wish there was like 1 more or 2 more transition shades in this palette, because there's tons of shimmers. There's every shimmer that I want for like a neutral eye look, but I wish there was 1 more like warm brown in there. All right, so that color goes on and builds up really easily. And then I'm going in with this shade, which is called My Type. This is more of like a little bit warmer brown, and it's just matte. It has a little bit of a reddish tone to it. And I feel like this is just gonna be like the go-to, like to deepen up the crease. All right, so I'm gonna try to use a couple shimmers for my lid. I'm gonna go in with this shade called Fancy Face. And this is like a reddish, coppery shade. And I'm gonna use it with Fix Plus, but I just wanna swatch it real quick so you guys can see that it is really pigmented on its own, but I always use Fix Plus. I'll show you just how it applies with a flat brush real quick without Fix Plus. But I always add a little Fix Plus to my shadows. So you guys can see it is pigmented going on. And it does go on really easily. Let me just actually just not use Fix Plus so you guys can see how it applies on its own, even though I really want to, just to get a more metallic look. But I think you guys can see that it's really pigmented and easy to blend out on its own. I just love Colourpop shadows. Like, they have never let me down. For affordable shadows too, they're so good. They're actually like one of my favorite, like probably in my top 5 favorite eyeshadow formulas, and they're way cheaper than all of my other favorites. And all I'm doing is applying it a little bit higher, and I'm just gonna blend it out with my crease brush too. I always carry my shimmers up because I do have smaller, like a smaller lid space, but a whole lot of crease, just to make it open up my eyes a little bit. And then I'm just using my blending brush from my last shadow to blend them together. You guys can see it like blends out really easily. I'm also not doing anything like super dramatic, something like pretty simple. And that's what you're gonna get with this palette. It's also not like the most natural look either. So I like that you can get really natural go-to looks, but you also get more like nighttime smoky looks with this palette. So this shade is called Level Up. It's like a goldish bronze shade. I'm just gonna apply that in my inner corner. This is a different Morphe M124. I talk about this brush all the time. It's my favorite lid brush, just to add a little bit of brightness. And this is giving me a little bit of Naked Heat palette vibes too. Like there's a lot of similar shades. Actually, maybe not a lot of similar shades, but the two shades that I pulled out from this palette are pretty similar. And then this is the shade Girls Bite, and this is like a copper bronzy shade. I say that about every shade, but this one's a little more neutral. And I'm just using a angled Sigma brush. This is an E65, I believe. Yeah, for my lower lash line. I'm gonna apply this more in my inner corner and maybe bring it out a bit. And then I'm also gonna apply another shimmer shade in the outer corner. And then I'm using, this shade is called Howdy. This is like a reddish burgundy shade, and it's also more pressed. By that I mean like, it's a bit more satin. You're not gonna get a lot of chunkiness from it. And I'm just using that in my outer corners. And that's basically my entire eye look in like 5 minutes with like half the shades in this palette. And I didn't know what I was gonna do when I started applying it, but I like all the shadows. The formula is awesome, so I knew it was gonna be really easy to do and blend out. All right, so that is just a really easy like 5-minute fall eyeshadow look with this palette. You can do a lot more neutral looks. You can do like a dramatic yellowy gold look too, but most of it is gonna be really neutral, but this is probably a little bit more dramatic for the shades that you have in this palette. But I'm just gonna apply my false lashes and then finish up with this review. All right, so overall, this is definitely an awesome palette. It's an awesome value, $16. Like, you get such amazing shades, amazing quality for amazing price point. I just love Colourpop. I'm wearing one of their matte lips right now. I love their lip products and their pressed powders. They're so good. Definitely recommend this palette. My only downside of this palette is I wish there was like 1 or 2 more transition shades. I hate that I'm limited just to these 2 transition shades. I'm never really gonna wear a black eyeshadow. It just closes off my eyes a lot anytime I do like black in my lower lash line. I don't really go to it, so I wish that there was 1 more or 2 more transition shades, especially warm transition shades. But also some of the days that I've been using this palette, I've been using it with my Too Faced Just Peachy Matte, so I can get like different eye looks. Sometimes with more neutral transition shades, like my makeup, I can't get my makeup to look as dramatic as I want, or like even if I did like a warm brown and then this exact same eye look, it could look completely different. So I wish that there was like those transition shades or like a couple more in here, but with all the shimmers, it makes it so worth it. And at least I have transition shades that I can definitely use and I like to use. I just wish there was like 2 more, especially because the Yes Please palette has so many mattes in it. So definitely love this palette. That's the only downside, is that I wish there was like 2 more mattes in here, but all the shimmers, the formula of everything is definitely great. Especially if you are like starting out with makeup, this is such an ideal palette because you can get a lot of natural looks, and even the more dramatic looks are still gonna look like not super intense because they are more neutral shades. So you do get those like smoky looks, but it's not like completely out there. So I do love this palette. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend Colourpop shadows in general. It's one of my favorite formulas. So definitely, if you guys are interested, pick up this palette. I don't think you'll regret it. $16. It's super compact. Like, it's the size of my hand. It's super compact. It's super portable. It's just a really great, ideal, everyday palette. So that is everything for today's video. I definitely recommend checking out this palette if you guys are drawn to the colors in here, because the formula is definitely amazing. If you guys have picked this up, definitely let me know in the comments below. Also, let me know if you are excited for Colourpop to come to Sephora, because it's coming to Sephora, I think, on November 1st. I'm like really excited about it because I love Colourpop. I don't get everything that I want from Colourpop because sometimes the shipping is like too much, but now that it's going to be at Sephora, it's going to be a little easier to get. So let me know if you guys are excited about that in the comments too. And if you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I'll talk to you guys soon in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.